Does your creaking crank bring you anxiety whilst on the trails? Do your friends point and laugh? Let's sort that right now with Bossnut Basics. So to service our bottom bracket and remove everything in between, we're going to need a 4mm, 5mm and a 6mm bit. I've got a ratchet for taking off and a torque wrench for torquing back up again. And we're also going to need a specific tool for the bottom bracket. In this case it's an Evo, so it's a Holotech bottom bracket we're using, so the tool is designed to match that. We only really require the 4mm bit and the 5mm hex bit. So let's start. We're going to take off this end bolt here, which compresses everything together, the bottom of the pedal here, and make sure you're turning away from it because very spiky pedals, you'll get your knuckles rattled in them, so keep them clear. So we're just going to hold the pedal and pull this out. Now you'll see, if I put that back to position again, is it's not very tight. It's just to take the top out, so just like the headsets where you're just taking the play out and no more. It's not designed to be wrenched on. Let's see how filthy and gunky it is. We've been riding around lately. It's very dry, dusty conditions. It's not too bad, but we're going to give that a clean up. So now that that's out the way, let's deal with the pinch bolts. They are crossed, so you've got one on the right, one on the left, so we're just going to take these out. We don't need to take these all the way out. We're just going to take them off enough so that they'll loosen. And then that way, when we put our crank down, we're not looking for the bolts to go with it. Everything's together. So with the pinch bolts loosened off on both sides, we've taken the end cap out. It now allows us to remove this crank arm on this side. So again, this is the Evo NX set that we're stripping apart and taking apart. But most Holotech systems are like this. So some people go at it with a hammer, but to be honest, if you grab it and rock it back and forward as you're pulling out the weight, as you can see, it comes off. Got a few things going on here. You can see we're completely clear on this side, and we're going to be pushing along in this direction. And on this side, you've got the drive side crank with the chainring. So I'm going to come to the back. I'm going to engage the clutch mechanism at the back, and then that allows me slack to take the chain off and drop it out of the way. Okay, so come to this point, you're going to find that the crank is probably seized quite nicely into the bottom bracket, which is good or bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of wood, a little scrap wood, and a little hammer here, and we're just going to place this on the end, and then we're going to strike it a few times just to get it loose. So I've spun this around so we can see the other end. Now we have loosened it, so it means that it will slide to a degree, but we are going to get to a point where it's going to stick again, and that's because there's different diameters along that shaft. It's designed to fit perfectly with the bearings, so tight at the beginning and tight as the second set tries to pass by. So you may need to give it a bit more persuasion to get out, so that's maybe driving it with a hammer from inside the bearing towards the end of the crank. As I'm sliding through here, I'm just trying to catch the edge of the crank and give it a drive through there. Here's a close-up of the non-drive side, so the left side of the bike. You'll notice the bottom bracket on the Evo has it marked for tightening, and it does have a marking to say that it's the left side, so they are identified, so when you take them apart you'll know which side it's meant to be. These gnarled teeth all the way around the edge, and we've got the bottom bracket tool which matches it. So I like to go around and make sure that it's as full on as it can be. I don't want it to be towards the edges, I want it to be right on, fully engaged. So if I can push it right back, I will. And then that means when I start to lever down, all my force is going into the teeth and nothing's going to slip off. So I'm going to hold the frame and I'm just going to push myself down because this is a regular thread, and we're going to get this loose. It will take a bit of force to break that seal, but once it has broken, you'll notice that I can just turn this by hand. Nice and gunky on the inside. This is the side that has the crank with the chain ring on it. They're reverse threaded on this side, so it goes the opposite direction to normal bolts. So in this case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go clockwise. And again, I'm just going to hold on to the frame as I do it, just because I'm in a stand, and I'm just going to put all my weight as much as I can down the way. And there we go. Another thing to note as we take off is there is one spacer washer on the inside here. Now you need to remember that that's there. That is what keeps your chain line and gear changes in line as well. So if that spacer isn't there, the chain is too far in, which means that when you go for your higher gear, like your 11 tooth, it's likely to pull off it. And it comes with the inner cup. You can see the amount of gunk that collects from under here, and we've got our spacer, so I'm going to keep that all together. So this is a little tip I picked up at the beginning of owning my Bossnut Evo, is at the bottom there was a mount for a cable guide, which was designed originally for the front derailleurs, but as this is a 1x11 system, you no longer need it. So I actually removed the cable guide and the screw, didn't replace the screw, I left it open because it allowed water to drain out of the frame that might make its way down towards the bottom bracket. So if you have an Evo and you still have the cable guide there, remove it, it will help after you've done this service. So here we have the bottom bracket removed from the bike, very filthy as you can see. I do this quite regularly, maybe every 2-3 months I would say, and even at that you can see what kind of condition the bottom bracket gets into. So the creak can come from the bearings, but it can also be a dry joint of some sort between maybe the spacer here, or the cups, or the thread against the actual shell of the bottom bracket in the frame. So many things. So we're going to take this apart piece by piece, and you will see what we're dealing with. So here's your spacer, our 2 cups. We're just going to work our way through. So easiest one to start with is the spacer. A lot of people forget about it, forget to clean it up and to put it back. There's a good chance that that could be what causes the creak. So make sure that all surfaces inside out and both sides are clear of any dirt and grime. Again, using alcoholic wipes, so nice and shiny apart from the wear marks. Cup in the middle, it's worthwhile giving it a clean, so we're just going to give it a wipe down, and you can see how it's just plastic, so it's not really going to get that contaminated or rusty, but it's still worth taking out all of those problem dirty greasy marks. But the inside, nice and gunky, so we're just going to feed in the alcohol wipe, pull out the other side, give it a twist as we do so, and that makes it better already. Remember these surfaces as well, Shamrock's part, and it does indicate which side goes where, so we do have right and we do have left. And now we start with the right side. So just the usual, we're going to go around with a wipe, cleaning around on the threads as well, because we need that to be clean so we can copper slip that again and put it in place. Cleaning the front as well. Now this is a weather seal of sorts. Now they're not meant to be taken apart, but I'm going to show you how. And again, we're going to put that to the side, and then we're down to the last cup here, which is for the left side. So we go there, nice and clean. And again, top hat washer, give that a wee wipe down before we're going to break it apart. And I'm going to put this to the side and dry. Okay, so we've cleaned the bottom bracket components. We're going to get them further stripped down, but just while I'm here, we've got our crank. We need to remember that the shaft itself needs to be cleaned of all the grease and grime as well, so give it a good clean down. We're going to be re-greasing this as well for going back in, but it's a good chance while we're here is to make sure that our chain ring bolts are tight as well. So we've got loads of access at the moment, so good opportunity to do that there. Okay, so starting off with the end cups or the shells for the bottom bracket. The usual trick, I'm going to use a scalpel blade. I'm just going to get myself underneath this seal and then start to lever up. Now this is like a top cap once it does start to come up. So just work our way around and then we expose the bearing underneath. Work our way around until that seal's broken. As you can see, you get a bit of a gap and then you can pull off. So it's a top cap type spacer seal designed to keep the conditions of the trail out, and then we're left with the exposed bearings inside. Now the Shamox one, I don't believe they do replacement bearings for these, so your only option is to pop out one side of the seal and try and clean them out as best as you can, or alternatively you can just replace the bottom bracket again. So same deal as before, we slot it underneath, pop up to the side, and the seal comes out. Always going for the inside. So again, popping up. Again, we'll get our alcohol based wipe and we start working our way around. We're going to feel for play, so as we rotate around, we want to feel if there's any grinding at all. If there is, then there's a good chance that there's dirt in there. It might be just a case of cleaning out and re-greasing, but what you're really wanting to feel for is if there's any play. So if you can put your fingers inside and pull against the cup and push, make sure you don't feel any movement at all, no dryness, no grindiness. If it's good, then we just repack after we've cleaned it and back together. If not, then you're going to need to replace the bottom bracket. So what you're looking to do is replace it with something like this. So it's a Shimano, this is a Saints bottom bracket. The sizing for it is a 68mm, 73mm, and this is a straight fit or straight replacement on the Evo and any Holotech bottom bracket. If you've got a later Bossnut, a 2020, then you've got a different setup with the SX setting, which has got the power spline, so that's a different procedure. It's not very serviceable either, so we need to make sure that we're going to clean the surfaces. So any of that grease, grime, dirt, as you can see, comes right off. We're going to be cleaning the threads, which I'd already done earlier, but you can see as we get further inside, the gunk that's built up in there, by wiping it you can see it does come off. It's a bit ingrained, so I might need a wee bit of scrubbing to get it going, but as you can see it does come out, so just going to do that now. So now we've got all our stuff, it's all been cleaned, and so is the frame. We need to get everything back together again, so I'm just going to finish cleaning up, repack with grease, the old bearings, nothing really much to show you, so I'm just going to hyperlapse the rest of this, and then I'll see you back at the bike. What I like to do is I use a bit of copper slip just to make sure that when I go to take it back off again, it will come off. Everything has been cleaned and greased up, so ready to go. So all I'm going to do is, this is our regular direction for the turn, so we're just turning this direction. It should go in by hand. If it doesn't go in by hand, then there's possibly grime in the way, or it could be that you're cross-threaded, so back out, come back at it again. So on this side we're going to have the inside cone tube type thing there. We've got ourselves a spacer that needs to go in there, and that butts up against the shoulder of the cup there. So we're going to just add a little bit of grease, so that way if there is any give and take on that spacer as it tightens up, we're not going to get any creaking from it. I'm going to put some grease on the top of it as well, and then this whole assembly is going in. Now it is on this side reverse threaded, so we are going the opposite direction we normally would, which in this case is anti-clockwise. We're moving this direction counterclockwise, and that's pretty much it. So just to give you an idea of how tight we are doing it, just bringing it up that way and about there. So kind of hard to tell you, but it's a huge range on the bottom bracket for when it comes to torque. So it's 35 Newton meters to 50. Again, make sure the tool's fully engaged and push back as far as it can. I'm just going to hold on to the frame and turn, and it's just about there. Very good opportunity right now, if you are doing a full-on service, is you've got a pivot bolt in here, which is a 6mm Allen key. You could take that off and that accesses the bearings behind, and then you've got another one on the other side. Now you can access this non-drive side easy enough because there's nothing in the way, but on the other side you have the chainring, which is a bit more problematic. So since you've got the cranks out and you're doing the bottom bracket, it'd be a good idea to have a look at your pivot points and your bearings at this moment in time. We've got the shaft, which is going to go through there, but we want to make sure it gets covered in grease. Put it just on the inside of the cup, and that'll push all the way through when we put through the crank like so. So just give it a wiggle, as we've got the crank so far through, but it needs to go all the way through obviously, so it's catching just on one of the parts that's slightly wider. It's designed to fit the bearing very snugly. Obviously you don't get any play, so we are going to need to give it a little bit of a wiggle and a little bit of a hit through. Now because the shaft's all been cleaned and greased up now, it should go through quite nicely. So there we go, that's it all through there. Now we'll move ourselves to the other side. Okay, so we've got the crank shafts all the way through now. We just need to add in the other crank arm. So make sure that they are at 180 degrees from each other. You don't want them obviously at the same part. We're going to wiggle it on as far as it can. A couple of knocks. It should be a tight fit, that's the best part about it. So everything's through. Now all we need to do is get a cap on to take the torque up, take out any of the play, and then we can pinch the bolts back up again. Okay, so last job is we need to torque on and take out all the play for the cranks. So we've got this top cap or end cap piece, and the idea is I'm not tightening it all the way in, and you can see how free it should be. So if I over tighten it too much and it starts to bind up, I know I've got it wrong. However, everything's been greased shaft wise, as well as the nuts and bolts in between, so this should pull in nicely as it is, and about there. And I'm just going to take a hold of the ends just to make sure, so it's still nice and free. But if I grab the crank arm and pull back and forward, there's no play. I can't feel any play between them. So now we'll get the torque wrench out, which is set to 10 Newton meters now, and we're just going to feel for the bite when it gets there. I'm going to move back and forward between the two because I don't want one side tighter than the other. So about there, closing in. That's 10 Newton meters for that one, and then the same on this side. And that's it tight, so that's it all back together. So the last thing you want to do is add the chain back on, drop it off the stand, and that's you done, ready to go. So just moving around to this side, we've still got the clutch on the rear mech sorted out, so we're just going to guide the chain around. We're checking out, making sure that the thick and thin sections of the chain are going to marry up perfectly with the narrow wide sections on the chainring. So slotted on there, looks good. Release the clutch mechanism on the back, and then give it a revolution into gear, and everything's turning nice and tight. There's no creaking at all, no play there, everything's nice and smooth.